Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy. Joining me again for the new year is Mr. Hartwell. Good morning.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, we're continuing our journey with the Venus sequence. We dove into it deeper last week. We're attempting to do that again this week. So, can you just maybe give everybody a recap of what we've got so far?
Well, the activation sequence was in three parts: breakthrough, challenge, breakthrough, and core stability. In some ways, the Venus sequence mirrors that. But where we got to last week is we we spoke about how the Venus sequence is all about opening yourself up to the experience of love and bringing love in all its fullest incarnation back into your life. And we started with the evolution, the design earth, moving to the attraction, which is the design moon. And that's all about the path of karma, or dharma rather, finding your flow in life. And we briefly touched on the path going from your attraction, which is the wounding around your sexuality, which opens you up once you're healed to be fully radiant and attractive in the world, between the pathway between that and the IQ, your intelligence quotient. And that's the path of karma, where we in a sense reopen that pathway. So that's where we got to.
So, where do we go from here then?
Well, where do we go from here? I have almost a compulsive attempt to teach everybody what I know. So I think I need to dispense with that and not try to teach you this, but in a sense, give you an overview of it so you know if you might want to dive deeper on your own or with me, but just to kind of convey the value that it really has. I think that's the best approach.
Okay. So, where do we go? What kind of steps do we take from there?
Well, what I want to say is that these six spheres that represent the Venus sequence, if we maybe, how did the wounding happen? We were born into this world, into our mother's womb, and that's where our core wound took place, when we were still in our mom's body. And then we were birthed into the world, and our spiritual quotient was that the sphere that relates to that, which is our our design Venus. Our design Mars is our core wound. Our design Venus is the spiritual quotient. This is when we were still connected to God as a child between the age of 0 and 7. And yet it was starting to attenuate, And then as we turned 8 to 14, that's when our emotional life came alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we, in a sense, were beginning to learn how to relate to others as a independent human being and set boundaries. And then that was all about our emotional quotient. And then from 15 to 21, we assert our intellectual dependence. And we have wounding around that area of our life too, and have other, in a sense, patterns that arise from that. So that's the sequence of how it unfolded. So the Venus sequence is a process of retracing our steps. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how does the core wound get activated within the womb? What determines that?
It happens as an automatic response to being incarnated. It seems to be, I think Richard Rudd would say this, and other thinkers would say this. It seems to be the nature of coming into this earthbound reality. There's no way around it. And there's nothing, in a sense, that your mom did wrong. I mean, some moms, are healthier on on certain levels than others, sure. But even if your mom were the healthiest person alive, there would still be that
Core wound. Yeah.
pattern. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't about laying blame on moms or on laying blames on any parents, but it is about. Richard Rudd makes this very clear, and this book is brilliant. It's kind of like having the locks and the keys to resurrect yourself, if I can use that word. So that's why you go from the outside in when you do the work. So that's why we started from the outside.
So what is the work like with the Venus sequence then?
Good question, Kris. This work is deeply contemplative, deeply self-confronting, and requires you to bring a lot of attention to everything that's going on in your relationships. In a certain point in the book, Richard Rudd says, hey, look, people, this is difficult stuff. Are you committed to love? Are you committed to finding I think it's his conviction, as well as many, that, in this new age, our pathway to enlightenment for many of us is going to be a rise from relationship rather than going off and, say, being a meditator in a cave. So if you want to do a meditator in a cave, you're not going to do the Venus sequence, because the Venus sequence is all about waking up within your relationships. So it's meant, if you have a significant other, you use all the dynamics that arise between the two of you to serve as the fuel for your exploration and for your, in a sense, choosing differently, right? Or if you're not with a partner, like, say, I'm not, for instance, then do you have the guts and the clarity of intent to bring your exploration into every one of the relationships that you have, no matter that they aren't a primary one? So it's gutsy. You have to be on the ball. And is that making sense?
Yep, for sure.
So
Because if you don't have a partner, who else are you going to explore with?
Yeah.
And we're in relationship. That's what we're here to be, right? Is
Yes.
connected.
Yeah. Most of us don't live in isolation. And so this is a pathway that requires a lot of courage, because we have to seek to be vulnerable as we, in each and every moment.
Yeah.
And
So
as we had.
go ahead.
But the rewards are worth the risk.
Yeah.
So we start at the outside. We go through the activation sequence, and then if we dive into this, what he calls the Venus stream, which has an intelligence all of its own. I thought that we would maybe use the mind as an example, the IQ, because in a sense, the IQ to EQ pathway mirrors the pathway in the activation sequence. It's the pathway of challenge, because if you wake up, and here, this is what you do. You say, okay, I'm going to look at the shadow, gift, and city of each of the spheres related to my IQ and my EQ. And then I'm going to look at the shadow. And then I'm going to look at the line number and its keynotes. That's too much information to convey in this format. And I am going to work with that. I'm going to contemplate it, and I'm going to see, how does that arise? But let's work with the EQ, because the keynotes here are simple. I mean, the IQ, the intelligence. So the idea is that as a teenager, 15 to 21, you developed mental defense patterns that disrupted the harmonious connection between you and others. And so, for instance, the first line, mine, is contemplative. And when they're in their shadow, they tend to be, I don't know what people will say to them, I don't know what you're thinking. What is going on in there? The second line mind has a brilliant mind, but when they're in their shadow, they provoke other people. They provoke, they provoke other people and sort of, poke at them. And the third line mind is flexible, but in its shadow energy, it's evasive. It's like it dances away from the truth or dances away from being directive. And you can see how each of these shadow patterns would create a lot of pain in relationships.
Yeah.
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 The fourth line, the influential mind, is inflexible. It refuses to budge. It shuts down. It says no more. Maybe I don't know, maybe they're the people that
La,
go,
la, 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 la. Yeah.
oh. I'd have to research that further.
Yeah.
But the
Well, I
fifth
have
line
a
is
couple line 4s in my Venus sequence, and I can tell you that is what happens. That also relates, I think, to that, that Ice Queen is just like shutting everything off and I'm done with you. You're banished from my life, right? Yeah.
Yes. So you can see, enough of the keynotes that he shifts them slightly from one sphere to another, but you can start to see how they layer on, right? The fifth line mind is practical, but in its shadow, it's defensive. And the sixth line mind is objective, but in its shadow, it's absent. It checks out. It dissociates. So, for instance, my mind is in gate 43, my IQ. So when I was a teenager, the shadow is deafness, and the gift is insight. And so I have an evasive mind. I have a line 3 mind. So I have a flexible mind, but there's ways in which I'm evasive. And right now, if you ask me, I'm asking myself for your sakes, the evasiveness is subtle for me. It's like I don't have a really good sense of my evasiveness. Sometimes I think that maybe my being really good with words causes me to not maybe engage with people as directly as I could. And I mean, it makes me deaf. It's like I'm unwilling to hear you, or it's not so much an obvious deafness. Like I'm not one of the ear plugging people, but it's more of
you just don't get it because you're not understanding what the other person is saying, basically.
Something like that. Like it feels quite subtle. It's like an energetic experience. So the idea behind this contemplation is that I begin to notice how my mind in its flexibility keeps me from being close to people, how it causes hurt or disruption for others because I'm evasive, and how that deafness happens. And I mean, it's also important to recognize the gift, because sometimes I am very insightful. That is a gift that I have. And so you begin to feel into it, and you begin to notice, how is this arising? And you begin to look for the subtlety, because as you do, it starts to shift. Now, I mean, do you want to talk about your mind at all, Kris?
Sure. It's crazy.
You've got the contemplative mind. You've got the hidden mind.
Okay.
And, chaos, innovation, and innocence are the gate that relates to this one for you.
So what does that look like?
Do you want me to riff on it, or would you like to riff on yourself? Okay.
Well, everybody's going to pick on me now.
Well, what it would suggest is that from 15 to 21 was quite chaotic for you. When you were challenged, you created chaos somehow in your environment. And part of that chaos was created because you're hard to read. You know, unless you choose to communicate to people or reveal yourself, you're quite hidden. There is that sense of, what is she thinking? What's going on in her brain?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that would create, that would probably end up for other people having them project upon you, which would
Confidence.
which would be part of the chaos that would be created
Yeah.
in the
Confidence.
relationships you had.
Yeah. People always think they know what I'm thinking and they don't, or what I'm feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as you work with that and realize that that hiddenness causes chaos in your life,
Mm-hmm.
you can start to shift that into where the contemplative part of your mind matures,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't, um, the energy shifts, and then that innocence, the innovative qualities of you come to the fore more, because I mean, that's certainly evident too.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be, in a sense, playing with and understanding how that hidden, when you're in that shadow side of yourself, it can create a kind of a chaotic energy.
Right. Mm-hmm. I get it.
So that's a little bit of an example. And I mean, we're not getting all touchy-feely here. It's an interview. But you can see how this can be deeply confrontational stuff.
Yeah.
For me to actually look into my being really evasive,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think it helps too to have somebody with knowledge, like, because this is a lot of information. One of the things that I value is that I have you on my team. And so I can go to you and I can say, hey, like, what does this mean? Or what does this look like? And then it helps me integrate it because I'm very experiential, which I know about myself versus somebody who's very book study-ish, right? And
Right.
so I need to rely on people who have the knowledge to help me shift the things in my life that need to be shifted. So for anybody out there that is like experiential like me, I would recommend that they, do sessions with you. And even, you do offer counseling sessions on human design too. So if there's something that's nagging at you that you want to shift and you don't quite understand it, Hartwell can help you through that. We've done this many times. So yeah, that would be something that I would recommend to everybody. Is there any last thing you want to say before we wrap up?
Um, yeah, just it's like, decide where you are with this work. I think, that contemplation as an antidote to the quick and fast world we're in, and dive into your human design and your Venus sequence. And I've created a course where you can dive into the human design, so you might look that up.
Yeah. And or if you can't find it, you can always give us a call here and we'd be happy to help you through. So do you know what we're doing next week? No? Okay, well, everybody, I guess we'll say goodbye. God bless for now. And it'll be a surprise next week when you tune in. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have time, please drop by the shop here and even have a cup of tea. Okay, with that, we'll say bye.